Hi, my name is Mackie Haynes, and today I'll be discussing a theory that really grabbed my attention, and this is the muted group theory. This theory was created by Therese Camare, and it states that human language was created by men for men, so women are at a severe disadvantage. Bottom line, man-made language helps define, depreciate, and exclude women. Now, which of the 8 traditions of communication theory does it belong to? I believe it falls under the phenomenological tradition, which is analyzing somebody's experience through their own point of view. Now, the muted group theory also fits in with the critical tradition. Now, this tradition is mainly out to oppose 3 main points. The first is using language to reinstate power balances. The second is the use of media to distract people from the unjust world around us. And lastly, the blind trust in the scientific methods. So the critical tradition is very critical. So now that we have a brief understanding of the muted group theory and know what traditions it can be classified under, let's dive deep into this very interesting and relevant theory. This theory began when Therese Camare started performing research in 1974, and she focused on the roles that women played in cartoon characters. Now, this first research project is only a small part of the 40 years of work that Therese contributed to changing and explaining the idea that women and members of other marginalized groups are muted. Edwin Ardener was the first person to propose that women were a muted group. But what's a muted group? It's people who are part of low power groups that must change how they communicate in order to be considered. Now, this doesn't mean that they're silent or they're unable to speak. It's more about the freedom to express what you're really thinking, when, where, and exactly how you want to. Camare has extended Ardener's original idea. She brought it into the communication circle and has gone more in depth on why the world functions like this and how we can change it. Camare emphasizes that women can often communicate in these small world settings, like in the house, but that their words are often lost in larger world settings. So, for example, I love baking. I find it's a great way to relieve stress and focus on one thing for an hour. Plus, you get the gratifying results that is baked goods. So last semester, I decided to bring cookies to one of my smaller classes to celebrate turning in one of our huge papers. After a majority of the class had enjoyed my work, a guy in my class, we can call him Brad, made the comment that I'll make a guy lucky one day, and his friend Chad chimed in that I was getting in good practice to be a wife. Unfortunately, I wasn't shocked, but I was frustrated. I did this to be nice because I love to bake, but I found myself questioning my decision to bring in cookies. Did this make me look weak? Will my male counterparts in the class now take me less seriously? This is truly the point that Camare is making, that men have defined baking as a term that relates to being a wife, even though to me, it's simply a hobby. Camare then goes on to point out that men and women have different experiences in the world. It's regardless of anatomy, but it's because society has forced these power discrepancies that ensure that we live different lives and that we have different outlooks. Men have more power in this world, or at least perceived power. You see, women are meant to be nurses. Men are thought to be doctors. Women are thought to be teachers, and men are thought to be professors. Women are taught to cook at the house. Men are taught to cook at 5-star restaurants. Are you beginning to see the difference? Men were the ones who labeled language, and that has given them all the power in the world. A great example of this is when I was a freshman in high school. I'm outspoken, and I have never shied away from taking the lead. In my chemistry class, we were doing a lab project, and we were all assigned different groups. I immediately got to work, started organizing my group, taking control of our project, and telling people what to do. There was a guy in the group at the table beside us who had a very similar personality, and I listened as he did the exact same thing with his group. The teacher was walking around the class, and I overheard him applaud the guy and tell him he was doing a great job being a leader in his group. So I was getting ready for my compliment when my teacher got to my table, and he quickly told me that I was being too bossy and to let my group members take the lead. You see, the word bossy is used to make women feel like they need to shrink themselves, that we need to take up less room. The word leader is used to make men feel like they can inflate themselves and take up even more room. Men are the gatekeepers of communication. Women are hidden in the shadows of men in our history books, in princess movies, in politics, and in media. Women are forced to change the way we communicate in order to fit in with men, because for males to try and understand females, they would have to admit their privilege, which is something very few men are willing to do. The ultimate goal of the muted group theory is to change the man-made linguistic system that oppresses women. Such reform includes challenging sexist dictionaries. Now, Camare and Paula Treichler actually compiled a feminist dictionary, which I think is kind of awesome. You see, sexual harassment has been around since the beginning of time, but it had never had a name because men never thought to give it one. Now, before I get into the critiques, I do think it's very important to note that women are not the only muted group in society, but they are the focus of this theory. So we all know that no theory is perfect. The muted group theory can be hard to swallow. To label all men as oppressors and all women as oppressed can be uncomfortable. Kumari tries to claim that it isn't a group versus another group, but she also thinks it's important to call out people in order to have a quality discussion. So how can we name an oppressed group without focusing on their demographic? The lack of clarity surrounding this question is a little frustrating to me because I am not sure what I'm supposed to do. Now, a lot of men have issues with this theory because Kumari might imply that men intentionally attempt to control and demean women through their use of language. So that can kind of offend some guys. However, I think if that you aren't actively trying to change the system, then you're contributing to its continuation. Men that benefit from the language that they have created and don't try to dismantle it are actively oppressing women. Where I think the theory actually falls short is the lack of focus on non-binary and transgender individuals. The LGBTQIA is another very muted group, and I would be curious to see the way that man-made language has affected those who don't subscribe to a certain gender or those who are born in the wrong body. Now, this is honestly one of my favorite theories that we've studied so far that I've ever studied. For every aspect of this theory, I had a personal experience that I could use to expand on my explanation. Although this theory may have some shortcomings, it is an important theory that needs to be discussed more. We should be trying to actively dismantle the man-made language to make it more inclusive. The world should be a safe space for everyone to speak their truth. As a communication studies major, I understand that communication is absolutely vital and necessary for everyone. So why is it not benefiting everyone? Well, I hope you enjoyed this theory competency, and I'll see you on Saturday. Reckham!